For some people, if God could get you to shut up, He could get a miracle to you. Have you ever been around a baby that's tired and really needs to sleep and just keeps crying and crying and crying and annoying everybody, even though they love them? They're just like, could you just shut up? Because if you would shut up for a minute, you could go to sleep and get what you needed. If you just keep your mouth quiet. It's kind of how some of us are with God. If we could learn to just shut up, God could get the answer to our prayers to us a whole lot quicker. Let's take a look in the Bible to see this. You remember the 12 spies that were sent into the promised land? They were sent in, they went in, they saw everything. They saw exactly what God told them they would see. But 10 of them came out with a bad report and gave their bad report, said everything contrary to what God said. And yet, everyone believed them. And because of that, they spent 40 years in the desert. And everyone above a certain age died, except for the 2 spies that brought back the good report, that said exactly what God said. Now, if they would have just shut their mouths, it's quite possibly that they would have gone in a whole lot quicker. Do you remember the story of Zacharias, the father of John the Baptist? An angel appeared to him and said that he was going to have a baby. Elizabeth, his wife, was going to be pregnant. And he responded and said, "How do I know this is going to be true?" And you know what happened? God had to shut his mouth. Not necessarily because he didn't believe. Yes, that's part of it. But he also had to shut his mouth because he wasn't believing. And if God was going to get something supernaturally to them, then he had to shut his mouth so that Zacharias wasn't speaking against what God was trying to get him to do. If God could get him to shut his mouth, to cut off that unbelief, then quite possibly, and it did happen, he could get a miracle to them. So sometimes we just need to shut our mouths. If we can't say what agrees with the Word of God, we shouldn't be saying anything at all. If all we're going to talk is negative, doubt, and fear, then we need to shut our mouth. However, it's not just about shutting our mouths. If that's all you can do, shut your mouth. But you know what? To get God's answer, to get your miracle, you need to do more than just shutting your mouth. You need to open it. You need to say the right things. If you look at Mark 11, 23 and 24, it tells us exactly what we need to do. Jesus told the disciples, he told the believers, he told you and me that we need to say. In Mark 11, 23, it says, "For assuredly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that those things he says will be done, he will have whatever he says. Therefore I say to you, whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you receive them, and you will have them." If you notice, Jesus talks a lot about believing, but he talks more about saying. Whatever we believe, we have to be saying. We have to have a good confession. A confession that agrees with the Word of God, not agrees with what the devil's saying, not agrees with what the world is saying, not agrees with what our flesh is saying, maybe what our natural mind is saying. We need to agree with what God says. That's how we're going to get our miracle. But you know what? We also got to mix faith with it. Just saying something, even if it agrees with the Word, it's going to do something, but it's not going to do what it needs to do because we have to mix faith with it. The Bible talks about those who heard, it didn't do anything for them because they didn't mix faith with what they heard. And when we talk, when we confess, when we say what the Word of God says, we also got to mix our faith with it. If we're not mixing our faith with it, then we're just trying to grow our faith, which that's good too. But to get what God has promised us in His Word, we need to mix faith with our confession. So we need to learn to shut our mouths if we're not going to say what agrees with the Word, but then we need to move on further and we need to say what the Word says. That's how you're going to get your miracle. That's how you're going to get the promises of God to come to pass in your life.